Section 2. Video 18. Forms Part 3. We have three main objectives in this video. 1. We will show you a file input element. 2. We will show you how to deal with multiple inputs. 3. We will demonstrate that controlled inputs with a null or undefined value are editable. First, we will talk about the file input element. In HTML, a file input lets the user choose one or more files from their device storage to be uploaded to a server or manipulated by JavaScript via the File API. Let's show an example of it in React. We will first delete the component we created in the previous video. Now, we will render the file input directly to the DOM. In the browser, you can see the UI of the file input element. Because its value is read-only, it is an uncontrolled component in React. We will now turn to dealing with multiple controlled input elements. To show an example of this, let's create and render a reservation component. Within this component, we will define two pieces of local state, with the useState hook. The first piece of state in the reservation component is going to record whether the user is going, with a default value of true. The second piece of state will keep track of the number of guests, with a default value of 2. We will return a form from the reservation component. The first form element will be a checkbox input. It will have a label of "is-going". Now we will add the checkbox input. It will be a controlled component, whose checked attribute is set to the is-going state. We can listen to the checked value of the checkbox input element via the onChange event listener. The onChange event listener fires a callback function whenever the checkbox's value changes, with the event as its input argument. We can access the event target's checked value after it has changed, and use it to set is-going. We will then add a line break. Our second form element will be a number input. It will have a label of number of guests. Here, we will add the number input. It will also be a controlled component, whose value attribute is set to the number of guest state. Similar to a text input, we can listen to the event target's value on the onChange event listener, and use it to set the number of guests. We now can see two independent and controlled input elements in the browser. First, click on the is-going checkbox. Then, increase the number of guests to 4. Specifying the value prop on a controlled component prevents the user from changing the input unless you desire so. If you specified a value but the input is still editable, you may have accidentally set value to undefined or null. We will demonstrate this. We will add an input with a value of null. Even though this is a controlled component, we can still edit it, as its value is null. It can sometimes be tedious to use controlled components, because you need to write an event handler for every way your data can change and pipe all of the input state through a React component. This can become particularly annoying when you are converting a pre-existing codebase to React, or integrating a React application with a non-React library. In these situations, you might want to check out uncontrolled components, an alternative technique for implementing input forms. As an aside, if you're looking for a complete solution which includes validation, keeps track of the visited fields, and handles form submission, Formic is a popular choice. To summarize, we showed you a file input element. We showed you how to deal with multiple inputs. And we demonstrated that controlled inputs with a null or undefined value are editable. In the next video, we will discuss lifting state up.